In this birth story episode, we have a happy vaginal birth, but with some baby blues postpartum. Welcome to the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, a board-certified OBGYN physician, certified integrative health coach, and creator of the Birth Preparation Course, an online childbirth education class that will leave you feeling knowledgeable, prepared, confident, and empowered going into your birth. Quick note, this podcast is for educational purposes only, and it's not a substitute for medical advice. See the full disclaimer at ncrcoaching.com/disclaimer. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. Thank you for being here with me today. So we have a birth story episode today, and if you've been listening to the podcast for a bit, you know that these are some of my favorite episodes. I just love getting a detailed glimpse into women's experiences giving birth. I feel like I learn a lot from it. So this week I'm talking to Jordan Borzekofski about her birth experience. Jordan is a proud wife to Josh, mommy to baby Jax, and a dog mom to Colt and Kimber. She's also a pediatric dental assistant who happens to have a sweet tooth. Now, I really enjoyed talking to Jordan. I love her voice and her Midwest accent, so I just love going back and hearing it. Now, you definitely want to stay until the end of this episode. You have to hear her experience with baby blues postpartum. It is a very typical classic description of what happens with baby blues. So you definitely want to tune in to listen to that at the end. But of course, you want to hear the whole story. All of it is great. She has a great experience. So I know you're going to enjoy this episode. Now, before we get into it, let me give a quick shout out to someone who left me an iTunes review. This is D260. And she said, I have found the episodes I have listened to informative and without unnecessary chit chat or filler. She is a good speaker as well, which makes the information easy to follow. I've also thought that all of the guests on the podcast had a lot to add as well. I'm glad I found this podcast, and I would recommend it to anyone who is pregnant or thinking of becoming pregnant. Well, thank you so much for that kind review. I especially appreciate the part about the unnecessary chit chat or filler. I try to keep the episodes tight so I'm not wasting your time at all. So I appreciate that. Now, let me give a quick plug to the birth preparation course before we get into the episode. The birth preparation course is my online childbirth education class that will leave you feeling knowledgeable, prepared, confident, and empowered going into your birth. Women love this course. I'm so proud of it that I've created it. You can go to ncrcoaching.com/birth-course or ncrcoaching.com/enroll to check out information about the course. The course is a way for me to, of course, provide great childbirth education, but it also helps support the podcast. Right now, I am doing everything with the podcast in terms of recording and editing, and I would really love to be able to get some help with editing the podcast and free up my time so I can do more content and things that are directly in service to pregnant women. So the course is a way to help support that. So if you're thinking about childbirth education, definitely check out the birth preparation course. All right, so let's listen to Jordan share her birth experience. You will hear her baby crying in the background at some point, but I want to assure you her husband is there. So it's not like she's leaving her baby crying to record. And at one point she hops in the car at the end just to kind of get away from the noise. So you may hear that a little bit. You'll hear that sound. So don't be surprised when you hear that. Okay, without further ado, let's get into the episode with Jordan. Hey, Jordan, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast. I am super excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you, Nicole. I'm very excited and honored to be on your podcast. I've been looking forward to it and talking it up with my friends and family for the past month. Yeah, so everyone's excited to listen.
Awesome. Well, why don't we have you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yes. Well, I am born and raised in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay.
I am 23 years old. My husband is 24.
Oh my God, Jordan, you're making me feel like I'm old.
I get that a lot. Yes, I've heard that. But yeah, we got married about 1.5 years ago. I'm a pediatric dental assistant here in town, and my husband is a plumber. We are very busy and with those types of things.
I bet.
But our son, Jax, he is 8 months old. So we had him around the time of our first anniversary, which was very special to us.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was great.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's just a little bit about us. We went to high school together and we dated in high school and we've been together ever since.
Oh, that is awesome. Really sweet story.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about the birth of baby Jax. In order to understand your birth, I think we always got to talk a little bit about what the pregnancy is like, because that definitely influences your birth experience. So what was your pregnancy and your prenatal care like?
Okay, yes, I found out I was pregnant at the end of December around Christmas time, and we kind of went back and forth with telling our family then that we were pregnant or not, because I had just found out, and you're always careful. Do you say something in the beginning in case something does happen, or do you just, keep quiet, keep it to yourselves? If something does happen, then not a lot of people know.
Right.
But we decided to tell them about the 1st of January, like on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. And my pregnancy was great. It was not hard at all. It was pretty routine. I got the morning sickness.
Mm-hmm.
I did take some medicine to help with that, which it really helped me. And I was very grateful for that, because there were a lot of mornings, afternoons, even evenings that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be sick. I need to be near a bathroom. Yes.
Morning sickness is such a myth to call it morning sickness, because it can definitely be all day sickness.
Yes. And so that was very, okay, let's get this under control and I'll be good to go. So that was kind of my first trimester. But after that, everything went as planned. I went to all my regular checks, met with my doctor.
Right.
Yes, it was. I didn't have any troubles or anything like that. So I was very fortunate.
Good. And you saw a physician for your prenatal
care?
I did.
Okay. Yes, I did.
And did you feel like supported and happy with the prenatal care you received?
Yes, I loved it. I love my doctor's name's Dr. Friesen. He did a great job caring for me and baby Jax and helping my husband, be a part of it too. I think that's very important. My husband tried to come to as many appointments as he could. And that was great. And, everyone's excited.
Right.
Everyone wants to be a part of the experience of all the milestones of the kicks, and you hear the heartbeat and you do an ultrasound. Like, that was all fun and we really enjoyed that. Yes.
Awesome. So it sounds like you had a nice easy peasy pregnancy. You got past the morning sicknesses, got past the morning sickness. You were happy with your doctor and everything was good.
Yes, exactly.
That's what we love to hear. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. So when it came time, as you're getting ready, you're getting close and getting prepared for your baby's birth, what types of things did you do to prepare, if anything?
Well, my husband and I are very organized and we are planners. So we were like, okay, we need to get the room painted and we need to make sure, we wanted a rocking chair and we wanted the crib and we wanted a nice big dresser and we wanted it all to match.
Right.
And so to us, that was, real important. Then we had to have a theme for the room. So getting things ready that way for him were great. As for myself and the birth, we didn't really do anything. We did not do any Lamaze classes or anything like that. I just kind of felt like whatever happens is going to happen. I, could go through these classes and prepare as much as I can, but you don't really know what it's going to be like until you're in it, and you can't look back, and it's kind of hard to remember some of the things people even, tell you for advice. But we just turned to a lot of our family and friends that have had kids and multiple kids and, say, well, kind of tell me what worked for you or what should we do or not do. And So that was very helpful to us, and I liked going that route.
Okay. Did you read any books or anything?
Yes, we did. We read the classic What to Expect When You're
Uh-huh.
Expecting. Yeah, and then our pediatrician gave us a book. It was like maybe Baby 411.
I haven't heard of that one. That's a new one for me.
Yeah,
Okay.
see exactly what it's called. But they gave it to us, and it was actually really helpful because it has, before baby, when you have baby, stuff like that. Yes, Baby 411.
Gotcha. Now, this is one thing that I talk about. Every woman has a different level of how, she likes to prepare. And Jordan took a more laid back approach, which is totally fine. Some people talk to friends, family, they read a couple books. I do think you need to do something to prepare, even if you don't take an official like childbirth class. I think everybody will naturally kind of think about ways you're going to ask questions and want to know what's going on. So, and you probably also felt better because you had a good relationship with your physician, that maybe you didn't feel like you needed to do like the whole full court press.
Yeah, for sure. And I, Googled a lot of stuff. I was always, is this okay for me to eat?
Right.
Oh, that was kind of a funny feeling. What was that? Let's,
Right.
Look that up. But I mean, nowadays that's just our world with technology and the internet, so that's readily available. So that was nice as well.
Okay, gotcha. Let's talk about something most pregnant women aren't getting enough of: omega-3 DHA. The recommendation is over 200 milligrams a day, but less than 5% of pregnant women in the US meet that. That's one of the reasons I love Ritual's Essential Prenatal. It has 350 milligrams of vegan DHA plus other key nutrients like methylated folate and choline to support baby's neural tube development. As an OBGYN, I appreciate that Ritual goes beyond the basics. The formula is science-backed, third-party tested for heavy metals and microbes, and every ingredient is traceable. And the delayed release design, it's gentle on the stomach, something that really matters, especially if there's trouble with nausea during pregnancy. You deserve to know exactly what you're putting into your body, especially when it comes to prenatal multivitamins. And with Ritual's dedication to traceable science and sourcing, you always will. See for yourself with 25% off your first month at ritual.com/Dr. Nicole. Start Ritual or add Essential Prenatal to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/Dr. Nicole for 25% off your first month. So, what was your birth like? Take us through the whole thing from the first moment of labor to when your baby was born.
Okay, yes. Well, it was a Friday, and I do not work on Fridays, so a lot of my appointments were scheduled on Fridays, and I'm an early bird, so I wanted to go in the morning. And I went to doctor's office for a check. I was 37 weeks and about 4 or 5 days along. And the week before, I was already dilated 2 centimeters, and I was about 70% effaced.
Okay.
Well, then this Friday that it all started, I went to my check. I was still 2 centimeters, and I was about like 75% effaced, he said. So he was like, you know what? I'll be surprised if you don't have this baby within the next week. So I was like, okay, I need to, this is crunch time. I need to go to Target. I need to, get all the last minute things that we need since he'll be here any minute. That's how I kind of took it as, and how we wanted to be prepared. So I did some shopping after my appointment, and my grandparents invited me over to their house because my grandma's like, why don't you come over and hang out with Grandpa and I until Josh gets home?
Okay.
I wouldn't want anything to happen. And I kind of laughed, and I'm like, it's okay, Grandma, I'm fine, no big deal.
Right.
So I went out and hung out with them till maybe about like 3:30 in the afternoon. And I got home and I was pulling into my garage, and I step out of my car and my water broke.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. But in that moment, I was not sure. I was
Right.
like, okay, I could have easily just peed my pants,
Right.
you know.
Was it like the
do not know.
classic big gush, or was it a little bit? Or
No, it was just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I kind of stepped out of the car and I'm like, huh, okay, that was a little weird. So I
Right.
walk into the house and I'm going in the bathroom to kind of like clean up. And then it happens again. About 2 minutes later, I feel another gush. And I'm like, okay, well, I better call the doctor's office and call my husband and just let everyone know that, you know, I think maybe my water broke.
Right.
So I called the doctor's office. They said, yeah, why don't you head to the hospital, at least get checked, you know? And so I called my husband to come home, and my dad actually doesn't work very far away from our house. So he was actually the first one here to at least be with me in case I started not to feel well. But, you know, remembering back to that day, I didn't feel horrible. I had a lot of back pain, though. I remember. So I didn't ever feel like I was having contractions. I just felt very uncomfortable in my back. I just felt like I needed to sit down or lay down and take a little bit of a nap.
Gotcha.
So about 4:00, my husband got home and we hopped in the truck and headed to the hospital. I had all our bags packed and ready to go in case we needed to stay. So we went upstairs, got all checked in, and as they're taking me to the room to check me to see what was going on, I passed Dr. and he looks at me and he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, well, we might be having a baby today.
Right.
Sooner than next week.
Right.
So I always thought that was kind of funny.
That is funny.
Yeah, they checked me out. And as you know, it takes a little while, you know, when you're in there and checking everything. And they got me all hooked up to all kinds of monitors, checking on the baby. And they checked the fluid to see if it, you know, my water had broken everything. Right. And they said that it did. Okay. So they were like, "Are you ready to have a baby?" And I'm like, "Of course, bring it on." So then I got admitted and everything and settled into a room. Okay. And that was probably about like 7:30. So that took a little while.
Oh, it did take a while.
Yeah. And so I was just kind of happy. Okay, I don't need to go home and deal with this because now I was starting to really not feel the best. I was just like, okay, something is going on. Right. And so they got me all hooked up, you know, to the monitors and stuff in there. They got an IV going, and
who was with you?
My husband, Josh. Okay. Yes, he was with me. My dad did meet us at the hospital, and then my mom and my sister came and met him there since they were coming home from work and school. So they came and they were in the room when we got to our delivery room and got settled in there. And then Josh's mom, my mother-in-law, she met us in there too. So that was nice that everyone came for a little support and stuff. Okay. But they got me hooked up to some Pitocin. I had a drip going to get the contractions started. Okay. You know, more intense and all that. So that was, you know, really good. And I just labored through the whole night. I got an epidural, and that is exactly what I wanted. I knew I wanted that from the beginning.
Nothing wrong with that at all?
Yeah, I had a great experience with that. I barely felt it. I had a great anesthesiologist who did it, and so that was very nice.
At what point in your labor did you get the epidural?
Yes, I got that at 3 centimeters. Okay. So I hadn't progressed that much compared to when I went in, but he was on the floor and they were going to go in for a C-section. So he's like, "I can come and do it now." And I was like, "Yes, please." Okay. I will take that now. Yeah.
And about what time was that?
That was probably about 10:30 in the evening. Yeah. So wasn't too long after I got in there, but
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was definitely feeling it at that point. The contractions were getting a lot more intense, and it was getting a lot more uncomfortable just laying there. You know, I felt like I needed a little something.
Right. And I hope every woman listening knows that this is perfectly fine. Jordan was obviously very clear. I want an epidural and I'm going to get it when I'm ready. That is great. So be
Yes.
comfortable with whatever it is that works for you.
Yes, and luckily all the nurses and the doctors that I was working with, they were all fine with that. So I never felt, oh, should I not do that? Stuff like that. I could see where people could easily, get talked into it or
Right.
out of it or, and it's like, just go with how you're feeling and what you want to experience if you can help it,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And did you feel
Yeah.
like you had good support from the nursing staff at the hospital and everything?
Yes, I did. They were all very good to me. And I loved the nurse that I had when I was laboring through the night. And
Uh-huh.
she actually needed to leave and go home when I was about ready to have Jack. So that was
Right.
really sad. I was like,
Aw.
oh, we had a great 12 hours.
Right.
Yeah. But
Right. Right.
yeah, that was sad. But
Yeah.
it was a very good relationship that everyone there had with each other and with the patients.
Well,
I
that's good.
never felt, yeah. Hmm.
And then after you got the epidural, did you just kind of hang out and relax? Did you get some sleep? What'd you do?
Yeah, I felt a lot more at ease. I was talking a lot more, being a lot more myself.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, I better start thinking about, yeah, trying to go to bed, take even a little nap and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And so I tried to, but they also gave me one of those peanut balls to
Oh
put in between
yeah.
my legs.
Yeah. Oh, tell us about the peanut ball.
Yes. Oh, the
I
peanut
know all
ball is
about it, but
awesome. Yeah, I bet. Yes, you've probably seen a lot of them. That was my
yep.
first one. Just like a big exercise ball that almost looks like a weight. It
Yep.
dips in the middle, and that's where you put it in between your legs, and it helps progress labor along, kind of. Is that correct?
As far as we know, it looks exactly like a big peanut. It's pretty
Yeah.
big, and
Yes.
as far as we know, it helps open up your pelvis because when you have an epidural, you're not moving around as much to kind of move the baby around. So keeping that big ball in there like helps keep your pelvis open and make space for the baby to move. So it works great.
Yes. So that it was very annoying from my standpoint because I was like, every time I had to move just an inch, it was like, okay, we have to move Peanut too.
Right.
You
Right.
couldn't do anything
Right.
without getting him in a different position.
So how long did you have the peanut ball?
Since until I was like inactive, like going to have Jack's labor.
Oh, you had it a long time.
Yes, and they would not let me rest from it, which I thought was weird. I just kept saying, this is a little uncomfortable.
Right.
Like, can I just maybe sleep for a little bit and when I wake up, do it? And they're like, well, you can, but we'd really not like you to do that. And so I was like, okay, I guess. But yeah, so it made that made it very hard to sleep, in my opinion.
I'm sure.
Because then I just couldn't.
Weird position.
Yes, I just couldn't quite get comfortable. So yeah, we had some fun with Peanut Ball, and Josh and I joked around that when Jax was born, we were gonna name him Peanut because we had the peanut ball with us until he was here. So that's always a good little memory.
Right.
But with the epidural, you can't really feel anything from below your waist. And so I couldn't feel any of my contractions anymore, which was great. But I also kind of missed it in a way because I'm like, okay, what's going on?
Right.
Well, Josh was great at, helping and being involved in everything. And he would always look on the monitor and he'd say, you're having a contraction right now. Do you feel anything?
Okay.
And I'm like, no, I don't. Just feel fine and stuff like that. So yeah, I was very happy that I had that and that support, and my parents stayed most into the night,
that's
with
what I was
me.
Gonna ask. Who stayed with you during the night?
Yes, my husband stayed right by me in a chair, and my mom slept in a pull-out bed that was in there, and my dad and my sister stayed for a while too, and then they headed home, and my mom met them at home later.
Gotcha.
But other than that, that was just kind of the night, very uneventful. And then about at, 6:45, right before the nurses were ready to change.
Mm-hmm.
She checked me one last time and I was 10 centimeters dilated.
All right.
So we were ready to go. And, or that was at 7:45,
Okay.
I think, excuse me. Yeah,
Okay.
because then Jax was born really quick after
Okay.
I was checked. He was born at 8:10 in the morning.
Oh, so you didn't well, let me back up a little bit. Did you see your doctor at all during the night?
No.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. It's really
No.
your nurse who is there with you for the
Yes.
vast majority of your labor. Your doctor is kind of in and out, and may not be there except a couple times.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And, now that you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, I totally forgot that, because in the beginning, Josh and I thought that was very weird. We're like, why isn't the doctor really checking up on you? Like, we would hear, oh, the doctor said, good, we're going to keep doing this. Okay. But it was always the nurse relaying it,
Yep.
But yeah, and Dr. didn't get to deliver Jax. It was just one of the on-call doctors from my group that I go to that did. So I just, saw him when I was pushing for, just a few minutes.
Yeah,
so.
I think a lot of people don't realize, the doctor it's really your labor nurse who's with you at your bedside, and the doctor may be in and out, especially overnight. They may be at home, honestly, and they're just talking to the nurse over the phone, and then they come in when it's close to delivery, or the on-call doctor may be there, but they may be sleeping just because they've been up all day in the office. So even if they're in the hospital, they may not, it's likely that they're not going to be in the room. That's just kind of the way, labor and delivery works.
Yeah. And that did kind of surprise us, because I didn't really think about it, or, I wasn't sure really how it went, but I was like, oh, okay, that, works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you found out you were completely dilated, and then I guess the nurses had to do changes, shift, and all that stuff. And so what was pushing like for you?
It was not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Probably because of my epidural, but I felt just a lot of pressure when I needed to push and when I was pushing.
Okay.
Other than that, I mean, it wasn't bad at all. I held my husband's hand. I often told the doctor and the nurses when I needed to push, because, they like you to, take a breather. And a lot of times I was like, no, I just need to go again. I can feel it. I just want to keep going,
Right.
I tried to just use everything I had to keep, pushing and to get him out. I didn't want to be pushing a long time. So I just used every ounce of energy that I could muster to do that. And so it just did not take long at all.
Okay.
Just
So
about
like maybe
30 minutes.
I was scared to say 30 minutes or so. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was not bad at all, I thought.
Yeah. Now, did you want to do anything like look and see while you were pushing, like watch while you were pushing, or anything like that?
No, I didn't want to.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. Yeah, some people do. Some people actually, I find that more women don't want to watch. Actually.
Really? Yeah. I get that. It I feel like it might have distracted me a bit.
Okay.
I was like, you know what? I think I need to just focus on my job here and make sure. Yeah.
Right.
So,
like I offer women a mirror, but most of the time people don't want to see. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When they said that, I kind of like looked at them and I'm like, oh, what's that for? And she's like, oh, if you want to look. I'm like, oh, no, that's all right. Right. Thank you. Yeah.
So then when he comes out, did they bring him right up on your skin?
Yes, they did. They put him right on my chest, and we did the skin-to-skin contact for an hour before. Wow. Yeah, they just kind of quickly checked him out. And I just remember, when he did come out, I was just like, I just want to hear him cry, then I'll be fine.
Right.
But before that, I was like, okay, are they gonna, take him and check him first? Or, I wasn't sure how that was gonna go. But yeah, they just checked him real quick and held him up for me. And then they kind of put him in his blanket and put him on my chest. And they kind of cleaned him up while he was on me. But,
that's good.
Yeah. it was really good. And so that hour was awesome. And I felt like that was really important.
It is important.
Yeah. And, we just kind of got to, know each other. And it was just a great, moment. And
Absolutely.
then the doctors, came in and they did a full check and got him really wiped down good and stuff like that. So that was good too.
Okay. Yeah. Do you remember if you did delayed cord clamping where they waited to cut the cord at all?
No.
Okay.
No, they did not. And Josh wanted to cut the cord, so he did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and that's one thing I do. We should start doing more. Delayed cord clamping is when we wait to cut the cord for 30 seconds at least, and it gives the babies a little bit of boost at the end. There's starting to be some more research. Maybe it's not as beneficial as we thought, but in general, we like to wait to cut the cord. So I'm curious as to how common that is. And doesn't sound like it happened in your, I don't want you to feel like you missed out on anything or anything like that. But
no. Well, it wasn't like right away. Like he was already on my chest when Josh cut the cord.
Gotcha. Okay. So maybe they did and you just don't,
that's all the 30 seconds. I wonder if it was.
Right. Yeah. So it's quite possible that they did. Because most often if they do skin to skin, they'll do delayed cord clamping too. So maybe they did and you just didn't realize it. Yeah.
Probably not.
Okay. And then did you have to get any stitches or anything afterwards?
Yes, I did. I had, would it be like a level 2 tear?
Second degree?
Or second degree, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I had. So kind of in the middle, correct?
Yes, that's very common. So they're first, second, third, and fourth. And first being the most minor, fourth being the worst, and first and second are very common.
Yes. Yeah, I had that, which I was very grateful for the epidural during that.
I'm sure.
That was a lot of pushing and tugging and, stuff like that. But I remember the doctor telling me, I'm going to have to cut a little bit. He's right here, but I'm just going to have to cut a little bit to help him out. So
your doctor did. Oh, interesting. That's an episiotomy, actually.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And what was his rationale for? He just said that he just felt like he needed to cut an episiotomy.
Yes, he just kind of said that Jax's head was right there and that I was pushing great and everything, but maybe it was going a little too low, or he just wasn't in the right line to go straight out, so they needed to just make that little cut to help him out a little bit. Because then right after he did that, I literally pushed like 1.5 times and then he was out. So
and he did discuss it with you before he cut anything?
Real briefly, he just said, this is what I'm going to do. It shouldn't be bad at all. It's very common. And then he practically said it is necessary in order to get Jax out. So I was like, okay, do whatever you need to do. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And I obviously I can't second guess your experience or why he said that, what happened. Episiotomy is not as common as it used to be, for sure. So, but again, I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what was what. So you had stitches afterwards, and then how do you feel like your recovery was?
My recovery was really good physically. Everything hurts for, a couple weeks. But even the day we went home from the hospital, my husband and I ran a couple errands because we were like, I did not breastfeed, I formula fed.
Did you make that decision ahead of time that that's what you were going to do?
Yes. Yeah. Josh and I talked about it. It wasn't anything that I was super drawn to, the idea of breastfeeding. I didn't feel like I really needed to do it or I was going to be super passionate about it. I felt like in order for me to be happy and for everyone to maybe help out when the baby came, that he would be on formula. And I just felt like that was the best option for everyone, going into it. And I'm like, maybe when I have him, it'll, I don't know, be different, but it really wasn't. I think my mind was set up and I didn't want to try it if I wasn't going to be 100% into it. So,
And how
yeah.
did you feel, like, in terms of the support from the nursing staff and the physicians about that decision?
Very, very well. That went over very well with Dr. Finn, with Jax's pediatrician. I told them that from the beginning, and they go, yeah, that is perfectly fine. If you know you want to do it, we will not hound you about it. We will
Okay.
not give you information about it.
Right.
If your mind's already made up. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. So no, that was very good. And I was nervous about that. I have heard a lot of things where women have said they wanted to formula feed right away, and then they might have kind of got pressured into breastfeeding, and then it was just really bad, or whatever.
Right.
And I just didn't want that, and it worked out well for us and for our family. I wouldn't have done it any different. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's good that you felt supported in your decision.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Okay. So you get home, and what were things like when you got home?
When I got home, everything was good. I mean, I still felt like I was on that high of Jax just being born. Nothing really got to me or anything like that. My husband was a great help. So were my parents and my sister and my mother-in-law. They all, came over and spent the days with us, kind of just helping us get into our new routine.
Right. That's great that you had that support. A lot of people don't have that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to have them. They all live in town, so it's really easy to call on them and say, hey, can you come over here and look at this? Or what do I do? Or,
right.
So yeah, that was really nice. But I did experience baby blues once I got home.
Tell us about that. What was that like?
Was not right away.
Okay.
It was probably about like 5 days after I got home. And, when you're in the thick of it, and it just all of a sudden hit me. I remember it was a Saturday morning because Josh was home from work, and I just got up out of bed and I started to cry, and I was like, I don't know why I'm crying. I felt very overwhelmed, but not like I couldn't do it or didn't want to keep doing it. Wasn't that bad. It was just, this is a lot.
Right.
I knew it was going to be a lot, but this is a lot. And no one can prepare you for that.
No one can. Like, you just can't. I'm an OBGYN, for God's sakes, and I had no idea. You just cannot be prepared for what it's like to have this human that you're responsible for. Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, my body went through something amazing, but very traumatizing to my body is what, I'm recovering. And when you're not getting any sleep, that doesn't help either. So it's like, and I'm the type of person that I need at least 8 hours. Otherwise I'm going to be grouchy. I'm going to not enjoy the day. I like my sleep. I, want it. So that was very much an adjustment for me. In terms of that. But I felt with my baby blues, I mean, I had it for about a couple of weeks, and every day I just tried to work through it as best that I could. Some days it really hit me, others it didn't. And I had never felt anything like that before. It was very shocking and different for me. So I was terrified.
What were you terrified about that was going to happen?
Well, I was just terrified of how I felt. I never felt that way before. I was not educated well at all about the postpartum baby blues and depression. We all hear about the postpartum depression that a lot of women face, and that it is real and it is scary. But I feel like no one talks about the baby blues that are,
very common.
It's very almost taboo to talk about it, maybe, or maybe people don't want to.
Right. So did you talk to anybody about it? Like, what did you do
Yeah, I talked to my mom about it, and my dad and my husband, and they were all very responsive to it. And then my parents' neighbor, she is a postpartum nurse at the hospital that we were at.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and talked to her.
Oh,
I was
nice.
like,
Okay.
you would know this. She had 3 kids, now 4 of her own. And she went through the baby blues too. And so one day when I was over at my parents', she just came over and, we talked about it. And she goes, I see that, you're not depressed. You're getting up, you're getting yourself ready. But, I know that you are, crying when you get home, or, just everything kind of feels overwhelming a lot of times.
Right.
And stuff like that. And she goes, and that's very normal. It's a lot of your hormones that have been skyrocketing for the past 9 months,
Right.
all of a sudden plummeting.
Right.
And so I felt like I was not very informed about that. But when I did, talk to her about it and stuff, I felt a lot better. I felt like, okay, this is okay. This will pass.
Exactly. Then do you feel like, did your pediatrician, because you see your you don't see your OB doctor for 6 weeks, which is something that we need to change, but did your pediatrician do any kind of depression screening or ask how you were doing or anything like that?
Yes, they did at every appointment. And about the first 2, Josh went with me to the very first appointment that we had, just like the day after we went home. And that was fine. And then I went to my 1-week appointment by myself. Josh was back to work, and that was fun. But I went to the next appointment, might have been at 3 weeks, and I just remember crying. I was like, to him, I was like, I'm kind of going through the baby blues, and I'm like, I feel like I can talk about it, and I want to talk about it and be proactive about it.
Right.
But I wasn't quite sure who to talk to.
Okay.
The pediatrician was giving me the questions, but I was kind of concerned at why I, wasn't seeing or getting these questions from doctor's office.
Right.
I'm like, I feel like maybe that's who I need to be talking to.
Right.
So I did call them and say, hey, this is going on. This is kind of how I'm feeling. I'm not real sure, if maybe I need to be seen or whatever. And the nurse, barely even talked to me about it, and then wrote me a prescription for antidepressants.
Wow. That's kind of, that's disappointing.
And then I really kind of flew off the handle. I was very upset then at that. I was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I'm trying to talk to a professional about this. However, no one is helping me. I felt like in the, community, as far as my doctors and Jax's doctors and stuff. And I was like, I don't think there's a problem. I don't want to hurt myself. I don't want to hurt my son. I just don't feel like myself and quite right,
Right. And did they say come in for a visit, or did your pediatrician's office just say, call your OB doctor? Is that what happened? And then
Well, I called my OB doctor first, and then I had the appointment.
Okay.
And I was really mad that I got those, that prescription, because I did not want that.
Right.
I did not feel that's what I needed.
Right.
So then I did ask the pediatrician, and I was like, can you help me or point me in the right direction? Can I just, anything here? And so he said, he gave me the name of some postpartum family therapists. And then I also felt like, well, that's not what I need either.
Okay.
I just felt like I needed.
What do you feel like you needed?
I felt like I needed to just talk to my doctor.
Okay.
To my OB.
Right.
I just needed to hear that this is normal.
Right.
It's okay. It will pass. Let's talk about it. I needed some ideas of what to do when I did feel those lows. One thing that my parents' neighbor, she did share with me, is when you start feeling like that and you're almost, kind of feeling suffocated by it, she said, you need to go and lay down. You need to sleep. You need to take a nap.
So the nurse said one of the things you can do is just get some sleep when you need sleep.
Yes. And, just try to, let your body heal, because I still just needed that. I felt like,
Gotcha.
And so that really helped. When I started to feel like it was, kind of getting to me, I would give Josh the baby, or, we'd call my parents to come over and say, hey, can you come, over for a little bit? I'm going to try to lay down, and that was very helpful.
Okay. And then you feel like after a couple weeks, things got better.
Yes, very much so. Everything became easier. We got into our routine, which was very helpful for me, since I, like being in a routine and knowing what's going to happen.
Right.
So that was very comforting to me and made everything okay.
Okay. So you got to your 6-week checkup and you talked about it.
Yep. And I told him that I was, upset that I got the medicine, and I just kind of wanted to talk, but that wasn't an option to me.
And what did he say?
And he was just like, oh, I'm sorry about that. However, we do that in case people are really not feeling well.
Okay.
And that they need like some medicine and stuff. And now we want to get that to them, so, things don't spiral out of control.
Right.
Which, okay, I understand, but I wish I would have been given some guidelines, or maybe even asked some questions first.
Gotcha. Yeah. Before you're just given a prescription.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But, that's just me, and that's how I felt.
Right.
It needed to be.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is perfectly reasonable. Baby, you're describing classic baby blues. It's the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then it gets better. And a lot of times it just takes support to get through things. And not,
Yes.
You don't necessarily need to start a medication right away. Maybe you do just need to talk. And it's one of the things that our organization, our national organization for OBGYNs, are working on, that we should touch bases with women sooner, just to see how they're doing and provide support.
Yes, I agree. I felt like that would have really helped me, and that could really help a lot of people, because I'm probably not the first one, and probably not the last one that is going to have,
absolutely, it's very
those
common
difficulties.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So then do you feel like after that time, things since then have gone okay?
Yes, very much so. Everything has gotten just to be back to normal, except, we have a little bit of a new normal, and
okay,
that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what
there's
we were
definitely
ready for.
a new normal after you have a baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
Yeah. Well, good. You have shared a lot of great information today. I think that a lot of women may be surprised to hear things like someone chose formula and you were totally okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
You went for the epidural, which is perfectly reasonable. I guess I'm sort of like feeling you were very confident in your choices. And I hope that people listening will take away the same thing, that you can feel confident. There's no right way to give birth, and you should feel confident in the choices that you make for yourself.
Yes, I completely agree, because, at the end of the day, you're the one that has to live with that decision. And does it work for your family? Is it comfortable for you? Does it make sense for you? And everyone's lifestyle is different, so.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So looking back on things, is there anything you wish you knew beforehand? Well, obviously the postpartum blues part, but yeah, anything else that kind of stands out?
Oh, let's see here. Not really.
Okay.
I mean, I knew I was going to be tired, and I knew we'd be getting up at nights, but I mean, I don't know. I just think it didn't all necessarily go as planned, but as much of as planned it could have gone, I felt like it went. So I didn't really have too many, surprises or things I would have wished I would have known more about.
Gotcha. But definitely it sounds like you wish you would have been more prepared for the postpartum blues and what could happen. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I feel like I could be a big advocate for that. If anyone's ever, feeling that way or has questions about it, I'd be so happy to talk to someone about it. I don't want to hide it or
right.
think that it didn't happen or
Right.
it's better than me or not. You know, it's
Right.
just like, no, it's
Right.
real and it happens.
Right.
And I feel like it happens to a lot of people when I started talking about it, you know, then a lot of people were like, you know, I did go through that, or
right.
thinking back, you know, I didn't quite feel myself,
Exactly.
or, you know, so.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely helpful for me to hear because I've been on the other side where I was at OBGYN and I didn't touch bases with women until 6 weeks after the delivery, and we need to do better.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that would just help everyone.
Yeah. Especially for first time moms.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Now that I know, you know, with, you know, if I have a second kid and stuff like that, I know what to expect.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So just to wrap up, what is one thing that you would tell other women as they get ready for birth? What is like your one favorite piece of advice?
My favorite piece of advice would be, don't be scared. It's going to happen. It's coming for you, whether you like it or not.
Right.
It's hard to not feel scared, but don't. You know, it's all going to end up how it should be. And even if it's not how you think it is, you know, it's God's way. It's your baby's way.
I like that. I like that a lot. So where can women connect with you if they're interested in connecting with you outside? You can, if you don't have any place to connect, that's fine. But if they're,
I would love that. Yeah. I would, totally love that. You can connect with me on Facebook, Jordan Borzekofski, or on Instagram. I think my platform is J Borze. That'd be JBORZE. And people can send me a message and I'd be happy to get back with them or talk with them, you know, through anything or just anything, baby. Yeah. And I love it.
I will link to those things in the show notes. So you can just click from the show notes and connect with Jordan if you want to. She's obviously very open and willing to help with some of the issues, you know, that you may face after having a baby. So thank you so much for that, Jordan.
Yes, of course. And thank you for having me. I feel so honored.
And I really appreciate your time. This was, I think, a super helpful conversation, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Okay. Same here.
Yeah, well, you take care, and I will talk to you later.
You too. Thank you, Dr. Rankins.
Oh, Nicole is fine. I'm only doctor in the hospital.
Okay, that's fine. Whatever works, right? Yes.
Exactly. All right. Well, you take care.
Thank you. Okay, you too. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right, so that's it. Wasn't that great? And don't you love her voice and her accent? Well, you know, at the end of every episode where I have a guest on, I do something called Nicole's Notes, where I talk about my top 3 or 4 takeaways from the episode. So here are the notes for this episode with Jordan. Number 1, Jordan didn't do a childbirth education class to prepare. She did read What to Expect When Expecting, which is a popular pregnancy book. And she kind of had the attitude that whatever is going to happen will happen. Now, that worked perfectly fine for her, and that does work fine for a lot of women. But I do want to caution you that when you take that approach, you are taking some chances, and it's a possibility that things won't work out. So I think that in order for you to be best prepared for your birth and really get the experience that you want, in addition to reading books, I think a childbirth education class is also a great thing to do. Whether you do it in person at your hospital, through an independent childbirth educator, or an online option, I think a childbirth education class is the way to go for most women. All right, number 2, I didn't like the part where, and I shouldn't say I didn't like, but it gave me pause, I guess, when she was talking about having the peanut ball and how she was kind of pressured to keep it, even though it was uncomfortable for her. The peanut ball works. It works great. It looks like a big peanut, like I described, and it does help keep your pelvis open to facilitate labor. But if it's uncomfortable and women don't like it, then you should be able to get a break from it for a bit. So if you find that something like this happens where you're feeling pressured to do something, and Jordan, you know, she found her own way to deal with it. So I'm not at all second guessing her choices or saying she made a wrong choice. I'm just saying that you should be able to not do something if you don't want to, and just point out the fact that it's wrong for us to pressure you to do it if it's not something that you want to do. Now, similarly with the episiotomy, I don't know if you could tell when I was talking about it, but it was like, wait, what? Huh? What happened? It was making me uncomfortable. I'll be honest. When she was talking about how the doctor just said, well, I'm just going to make a little cut to help the baby come out. That is classic language for doctors cutting an episiotomy that really doesn't need to be cut. And it's done as a means to help speed things up with the delivery. Now, she healed fine from her episiotomy, and most women do, but not all women do. And it carries risk. It can lead to a further tear. It can lead to bleeding, infection. So it really shouldn't be done unless absolutely necessary. And she hadn't pushed that long. She'd only pushed for like 30 minutes, if that. So it wasn't like she had been pushing a long time. So it just made me uncomfortable to hear that kind of language being used. It's classic language for trying to rush the delivery. Okay, last thing is Jordan had a happy delivery. She was happy with her experience, but she did have baby blues, and baby blues are so common. She gives a very classic description of how baby blues plays out. And one thing that I think she highlighted that's really important is that most of the time you don't need to jump to medication right away. Now, this is not a knock on medication because, of course, some women will have depression or anxiety where medication is the right option, but it shouldn't always be the first choice. One thing that helps a lot and that she found that's helped a lot was support. Women need support after having a baby, and that's not something that we do a great job of in our country. Thankfully, Jordan had support from family. She had support from the postpartum nurse who lived nearby, and she was able to work through it, but not all women have that. And obviously, we do a bad job in the medical system. Waiting to see women until 6 weeks postpartum is a mistake. Now, the OBGYN specialty is making some effort to change that. Recently, there was something called a committee opinion from ACOG, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, that recommended that women be seen within the first 3 weeks postpartum, or at least have a touch point where you contact women within the first 3 weeks postpartum. Even if we just did a phone call or touch bases with women in the first couple of weeks, you don't even always have to come in for a visit. Just kind of talk and see how are you doing? Because as she mentioned, a lot of it was just talking through it, and she wanted to get that reassurance from a medical provider that everything was okay. I think this is especially important for first-time moms. So definitely look for those places of support. It could be a postpartum support group at your hospital or in your community. It could be a Facebook group for moms that's a support source for you. One thing that I say women should consider is on their baby registry and taking off some of the items like diapers, or you can keep the diapers and stuff on, but also adding money to help pay for a doula who can be there during your birth, and a postpartum doula. That type of support can be very, very helpful. Okay, so that's it for this episode. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast in iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And if you feel inclined, please leave an honest review in iTunes. It helps other women find the show, and I may give you a shout out on a future episode. Now, next week on the podcast, I have a pediatrician on who exclusively does in-home care for newborns. It's interesting. She actually used to be a neonatologist. So come on back to hear that great episode next week. And until then, I wish you a healthy and happy pregnancy and birth. Today's episode is brought to you by Women's Wellness Coaching by Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins. Head to ncrcoaching.com to check out my free 1-hour mini course on how to make your birth plan, as well as my comprehensive online childbirth education class, the Birth Preparation Course. With over 8 hours of content and a private course community, the Birth Preparation Course will leave you knowledgeable, prepared, confident, and empowered going into your birth. Head to ncrcoaching.com to learn more.